The first thing that I'm going to do is go ahead and straighten an edge. So if we have a slight bow in this divider, we actually want to plane a slight bow into the bottom edge of this. So I'll go ahead and check that with a straight edge. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in my vise and take a couple of swipes off of the bottom edge to get rid of the mill mark. The other thing that I want to do is to make sure that this will fit into the opening now. So I'm going to plane off the top edge until I can get it to actually fit. And this is just trial and error, back and forth. I've cut one end square. Now I have to get a length of the drawer. I need to have the length at the top and the length at the bottom. I like to run lines all the way around to help prevent chip out. Now I'll cut this on the table saw. Just a little bit of fitting now. When you're planing the end grain, you want to make sure you come in from both directions so you don't blow out one of the edges. The drawer front is fit. It's a little tight, but the final fitting will be done after the glue up. Now I'm going to hand plane the inside surface to make sure that it's good and flat. This is also a reference surface for our marking gauge. So if we have a curved surface on the inside, when we run our marking gauge across the end of it, we're actually going to be doing a curved line. One of the other things that we have to be conscious of is to make sure that this isn't badly twisted. So we'll want to check it from corner to corner. Okay, now we have to focus our attention on the sides. We have to determine whether there's any bow in the sides. And if there is, we would like to have that surface to the outside. So this one's going to go on this side. Okay, the next thing that I'd like to do is to go ahead and plane my reference surface, which will be the bottom edge. Now, I'll need to plane these to width so that they fit into the openings. Okay. Now what I need to do is to plane the ends of the drawer side square. This also removed the roughness from the table saw. That looks good. Now I'm going to plane the inside of the drawer sides. This preparation was really important because when I use my marking gauge, it's really going to reflect all of the surfaces that I've planed and planed square. Now we're going to go ahead and scribe the end of the board. We're going to go ahead and scribe that same distance onto the ends of the drawer sides. Okay, now let's go ahead and pick up the thinnest dimension of the drawer sides. With that thinnest dimension on my marking gauge, I can scribe the inside of the drawer front. Now we're ready for the layout. One of the crucial measurements that I need here is that I want the drawer bottom to be 3/8 inch up from the bottom. So this is where the top of this pin needs to be. And this one will be at that point. And in this drawer I'm going to do 2, so I'm just going to divide this evenly. I'll drop some vertical lines down the back. Since I have this in this position, I'll go ahead and saw them. Now I place my fingernail right in the pencil line and then rest the saw against it to make my cut. I saw the same direction on each one of the pins as I work my way down. This makes sawing a little more efficient. I'll start off by chopping about 1/16 of an inch away from my scribe line on the inside of the drawer front. Then I come back and chop in from the end grain. Now with the second cut, I'm going to angle my chisel. Now I'm going to come back and make a slight chiseling cut along the angle in this direction. Okay, that's nicely roughed out. Now you notice that I make 2 angle cuts, then remove the material in between. Now I just use about a 1/16 of an inch off the corner of my chisel to remove the rest. Okay, this little triangle inside of here is where the saw doesn't cut. So we need to bring our chisel in and remove that material. Now it's important to make sure that these side walls are square, and you can do that by holding a ruler up against the pin. Okay, let's go back over to the end of the bench. Now I'll be able to put my chisel against this nicely chiseled surface and then make my final chop. You'll notice that I'm able to slide my chisel up until it just registers in the line, and then make my final cut in. Now I'm going to come back and try to clean up all of these corners. Now I'll give you a couple of pointers as to what needs to be straight and square. Okay, I'm going to take this square and I'm going to set it up to the height of the scribe line. And then I'm going to come back in this direction to make sure that the square doesn't get lifted up. If it does go up, it means it's out of square and we'll need to take more material from this back edge. Now I'm going to set my square again to this depth, again where the scribe line is, and I'll drop that down and drag it along here, and if it pushes the square away, it means that this surface isn't parallel to the inside of the drawer. To mark the tailboard, I lay the drawer side on the bench. With the drawer front slightly angled, I then drag it forward until the scribe line on the end of the drawer front catches, and then rock it forward until it sits flat. Then I'll use a pencil to mark the position of the pins. Now, one of the really important things that we have to remember here, when we go to saw our lines, we need to make sure that we leave the pencil line and just try and kiss it. Now you'll notice that what I do is I make an angled cut following my pencil lines across the end and down the angle of the scribe line, and then just simply follow the curve all the way down the back side. Now I lay the drawer side down with the inside facing the bench top. That way, when I chop through to remove these pins, if it happens to chip out slightly, it'll be on the inside of the drawer. Now we'll go back to the vise to pair to the shoulder line. Any wages that's going to fit? It's perfect. Now that I have this other side dovetailed, I need to cut some grooves for the bottom. Now what I'm looking to try and do is to miss the edge of this pin with the saw blade. So I'm going to actually set it up to the drawer front. And I'll just stay slightly shy of that pin. That's at 3/8 to that side of the blade. Now I'll just readjust the fence to make for a 1/4 inch groove. Now I need to rip the back to the proper width, and that distance will be from the top of the groove to the top of the drawer. Okay, we'll cut these drawer sides to length now. And to save a little bit of time, I'll just stack these on top of one another. Okay, the back has been cut square on one end already, so what we'll do is cut this to length now. And the length, I generally like to have about a 1/16 of an inch shorter than what the drawer front is. That'll make fitting the drawer a lot easier. Okay, what we want to do is pick up some the thickness of these parts so that we can transfer them to each other. We're going to scribe these on the ends of the sides now. I'll just do 2 end pins here. It's a little easy to cut the pins on a through dovetail. Now to remove this waste, what I'll do is take a coping saw and cut it away as opposed to chopping. It just saves on the eardrums. All right, now we can go ahead and clean these up with a chisel. I like to go about halfway across, turn it around, come in from the other side. Okay, now what we need to do is transfer these onto the drawer sides. And then we're going to mark these. All right, let's go ahead and transfer some lines across and saw them out. All right, let's chop these out over here. See, this almost goes all the way in. Now what I'm going to do is when I take this apart, I'm going to just take a little bit off the bottom to keep that up so that the drawer sides are slightly protruding below the drawer front so that the bottom edge of the drawer front doesn't get caught on the horizontal. About 10 strokes. Time for a glue up. I'm just going to put a little glue on the inside of these pins and a little on the end of the tails and try to tuck a little in between here as well. I'll do one side to begin with, and then I'll stand this up on end and then do the other side. I like to use some pine cowls with some cellophane tape or some wax paper wrapped around them so that they don't stick to the drawer front when we're gluing up. They apply pressure to the front evenly all the way across, and they're soft enough to allow the pins to compress into them when I apply the pressure from the clamps. As always, we should check for square on the diagonals. Now, one last check. It's a good idea to see if the drawer has any twist in it. We do this with a set of winding sticks. And if the sticks line up, we're all set. Looks pretty good. Now you notice that these are just protruding ever so slightly, so what I want to do is I want to bring my drawer side right down to this edge, and that'll be the fit that I had when I first started. Now what I'm going to do is bevel this back edge slightly so that I can plane with the grain and prevent chipping out the pins on the back. How sweet it is. You can see where I planed the reveal on the bottom before I glued up the drawer. Now I'm going to have to plane off the ends of the drawers a little bit more for a good fit, and I'll probably take a little bit more off of the top because right now it's quite dry in the shop, and when summer rolls around this is going to swell up quite a bit. So at this point I'll finish taking care of those issues. I think we're ready for a drawer bottom. There. I'll nail that in place once I have all the finishing done. Now that I've planed and scraped the drawer front, and I've also beveled the edges to sort of take the sharpness off, I'm going to go ahead and install the pull. There we go. Only 4 more to go. Now it's really worth the time to custom fit all the drawers. A nice fitting drawer, the way that it slides when you open and close it, it's worth every minute that you spend.